everybody, it's the Lawn Gnome, and welcome to another episode of Sunday Sit Down, the show where anything goes and nothing gets left behind. As always, I'm Steve, your friendly neighborhood Lawn Gnome, and I gotta tell you guys, it's been a while. I'm really sorry that we're not recording this live because YouTube is really being a pain in the toot, so I'm trying any other methods in regards to recording these to get them to you guys as soon as I can. So, as I said, it's been a while and a lot has happened. And one of the things that has happened is the fact that we said goodbye to one of the most revolutionary television shows that came to all of us and was here for almost a decade. And you guessed it, that's Game of Thrones. Now, whether you were satisfied with how the show ended or not, it doesn't really matter because we're covering all of it anyway, but I couldn't have found a better person to talk about this show with me, and that, of course, is my friend Britt, whose name on her channel constantly changes, so I don't really know what she goes by these days, so I'm just going to say Britt. But anyway, she has been on my show before. She is an excellent booktuber, very perfectly opinionated, and a Game of Thrones fan extraordinaire. So Britt, welcome back, and it's a pleasure to have you on Sunday Sit Downs today.
Thank you so much for having me, Steve. It means a lot. I mean, this is my favorite thing to talk about, so.
Yeah, well, the unfortunate thing is the fact that we only have an hour, so I'm really hoping that we are going to go over everything in due time and make sure that everything is taken care of. So as always, I've got 7 questions for my guest, and we normally like to begin at the beginning. So the first question that I have for you today is, what was your first exposure to A Song of Ice and Fire? Because in case you were all just watchers of the television show, this was based on the Song of Ice and Fire series by George R.R. Martin. So, of course, it was changed for cinematic value to Game of Thrones. So that's why I asked about that original title, because I had no idea if she even read the books before the show, and that's why I asked the question. So what was your first exposure, and what were some of your influences that got you interested in this?
Okay, so first of all, I have to say I was a show watcher first.
Okay.
I had no idea that the books existed. I have read the books multiple times since then. But my first exposure to Game of Thrones, it's actually kind of a sad story.
Okay.
It was my first year in college, and this was before I came out as a lesbian. And before that, I was in the denial phase of the lesbianism, and I got involved with this guy, and he was not the best of lads. I was in a physically and emotionally abusive relationship, so he was the one that got me into Game of Thrones. So I mean, it's both a blessing and a curse, because at least, you know, I had Game of Thrones there for me after he left.
Right.
You know, like that was like my coping mechanism, I guess, is that whole thing. But yeah,
that's definitely not the typical story. So
no.
let me just say, kudos to you for actually sharing something that's extremely personal. Not that many people actually start off a story about watching a show that they absolutely love like that. So I truthfully appreciate the fact that you felt comfortable enough to say that. I mean, for me, I was just a typical television watcher looking for something new to watch, and I had watched my share of HBO shows, and when I started seeing the trailers for Game of Thrones, I didn't even know what the books were. All I knew was that, look, it's Sean Bean and he's on television. I want to watch this show. And that's pretty much how I started watching Game of Thrones. That was my story. I didn't actually know my wife just yet, but one of the few things that I was so happy about was when my wife and I had first started dating. She was also a big fan. We basically met right before season 3 aired. That's basically when we both started watching together. But yeah, it was a really something that just looked interesting to me. I like fantasy, and that was just something that piqued my interest right off the bat. So then that will lead into the second question, and that is, when it comes to the first episode of any television show, it usually can be the make or break moment. So, how did you feel after the first episode, and which character pretty much got you on board? The one that basically said to you, you know something, I'm going to keep watching the next episode, see how that goes, and see what happens if I actually enjoy watching this series for a whole season.
Well, my first overall reaction to it was, holy shit, that kid just got pushed out a window. And honestly, that was what made me want to watch the next episode, because I was like, I gotta see what happens to this kid. Is he dead? Is he alive? And also the guy I was dating at the time was like, you gotta watch the show. And I mean, I will literally watch anything with Alfie Allen in it. So that was also a contributing factor.
Well, I'll tell you a funny story. That's the exact same reason why I continued watching. After Bran got thrown out the window, I was like, well, that's different. You know, it's just like that was one of the, because they gave you such a twist, maybe even a twist that M. Night Shyamalan couldn't have even thought of. But you know, it started off a little bit slow. You got to know all the characters. Some of the characters were already showing off their personalities. Like right off the bat, the character that drew me into the show was Arya. Because I just loved that there was this little girl that wanted to be just as tough as Theon and Jon and Robert, and not Robert, Rob. And of course, then Robert Baratheon comes in, and he's played by Mark Adey, and Mark Adey is an actor that I actually really like a lot. And Sean Bean was very good too. But also, I think another one of the characters that really got me interested in it was Peter Dinklage, because I already knew who Peter Dinklage was, and I did like the fact that he had a sense of humor. But yeah, it was the last 2 minutes of that episode when Bran is climbing the window and he sees something that he's not supposed to be seeing. I don't think that's even something that the audience even anticipated. And then he gets thrown out a window, the screen goes black, and the credits roll, and the entire world's jaws are officially on the floor.
Yup. I mean, not many series start with, for one, like two twins having sex and then throwing a child out a window.
That's right, I completely forgot that they were twins.
My one friend said they shared a womb and just never stopped, and that made me laugh hysterically.
That is definitely a very funny way of looking at it, for certain. That is really, really funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so then let's go into the third question, and that is, which of the storylines, and we can really go further on into the show as it progresses, because there are 8 seasons that really did get talked about. So which storylines in the show were the ones that you were really 100% invested in?
Okay. Going from season 1, I think the obvious answer that everybody is probably going to give is Ned's storyline.
Okay.
With him going into King's Landing. I maybe it's because I like Sean Bean, but I think that he did Ned justice. He brought life to Ned Stark that I feel that he kind of lacked in the books. And I know we're not really going into the books, but I feel like he gave Ned a personality, whereas in the books, Ned doesn't really have a personality. So that was nice. And also, I really loved, from the beginning, I really loved Arya and Sansa. Like, with the exception of Theon, probably my favorite character is Sansa. And not that I dislike Arya. I like them both for different reasons. But I guess for me as a survivor of, like physical and mental abuse, I instantaneously connected with her situation and found a lot of sympathy within her situation that I feel like unless you've really been in her situation or somewhere similar, you don't really understand it. And then you remember that she's 12, 13 years old going through all of that. And it's insane that she was able to put up with all of that crap in just season 1 alone, with, like having to watch her father get executed. And there are different types of strength in characters. And while Arya is a physically strong character, no doubt, Sansa is what I would consider a true definition of strength and willpower. Because if she did not find that strength within herself, there's no way that that little girl would have survived King's Landing.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that you mentioned that because I'm very similar to you with a lot of the characters, because when it came to a lot of people who watched the show, the two characters that everybody was so interested in were Jon Snow and Dany. And quite frankly, those were the two characters that I was pretty much interested in the least. I didn't really appreciate John's character because I just found him so lifeless. I mean, don't get me wrong, there were a really cool amount of things that were happening around him. And I think what made his appeal there for most is because of the fact that he had a great supporting cast around him throughout the seasons. Because he had Sam, he had Ygritte, he had Tormund, he had the whole waiting for winter to come, the Night King and his army of the dead coming. He had Ghost. He had all of these supporting characters around him that made him so watchable, and people basically just went gaga over him. And the same could be said about Dany, because at the very beginning, Dany is pretty much like barely even speaking.
Yeah.
But she's got Jason Momoa with her. And that's basically the reason why people just love Jason Momoa now.
Yeah.
But there's also so many other characters that are part of her group, if you will, that everybody likes, including the dragons. You know, like she's the mother of dragons. She was basically the one that had all the special effects around her, so all the visual stuff. And also because of the fact that she spent almost the entire series outside of Westeros. So she had a completely different atmosphere. It was more wide open. It was not so claustrophobic in castles and all that stuff. So I think that it was the aesthetic of her that made her so much more enjoyable and interesting to watch, because everybody just wanted to say, when is she finally going to cross that ocean or sea, and when is she going to finally get to that Iron Throne? But for me, I liked Arya because, I mean, I will also admit that probably around seasons 5 and 6, her story hit a wall. I really didn't. I wasn't really interested in the whole thing with the faceless man. Like, I just didn't really care much for that. But the whole traveling with the Hound was a great story. Her trying to escape King's Landing was very interesting, and just seeing her grow as a warrior was just such an interesting thing to see. And Maisie Williams did a great job at performing. And of course, we all know what happened at the very end and what culminates into everything that she learned, and basically it made full stadiums go completely out of their minds when she did what she did. But I also agree with you on Sansa. What I really liked about Sansa was the fact that she was a real innocent in a whole world of sin and dismay. And the thing was, even though she was a true lady, bad things still happen to her. And I think that that sends a very important message to the world, saying that you can be the best person that you can be, and you still have the ability to find out that life isn't perfect and that people just don't care how good you are.
Yeah. And I think, you know, I the thing that I don't feel that a lot of people really take into account is how sheltered all these children
Yes.
were at Winterfell. Even Rob, even John, Bran, Rickon, they all were very sheltered and not prepared for the world at all. And maybe partially that's the fault of themselves for living in ignorance, or because I don't want to blame Ned and Kat and their septas entirely, but they lived a very comfortable life
Yes.
until it was pulled out from under them and they were forced to get a taste of the real world. And I think that has Ned's protection of them has a lot to do with Robert's rebellion. He did not want that life for his kids, and he did whatever he could to shield his kids from that, and unfortunately didn't work out the
Yeah, but
way.
yeah, but at the same time, with every negative, there's a positive. The fact that these kids literally were thrust into the real world, they actually managed to grow a true thick skin. And
Yeah,
some a little bit later than others, but by the end of the series, when you take a look at the three remaining Stark children, look at how strong they are.
yeah,
I mean, for crying out loud, Sansa has a stare that can cut glass when you take a look at her. And it's just, and you know something, I felt so happy for her because I
yeah,
wanted her to finally get that reward after dealing with so much torment. And also characters that I really did like, even though he didn't have much of a story himself, I did enjoy Tyrion just
yeah,
because Tyrion brought a lot of life to the show. I thought Peter Dinklage did a great job. I thought that the fact that he was basically part of so many other stories, I also feel that he is responsible for one of the greatest moments in the show, and that's his trial speech.
yeah,
That's just like one of the most amazing performances that I've ever seen. And I also appreciated the fact that he had a little bit of say in other people's stories as well. I really liked that he tried to create a relationship with Danny. He tried to create a relationship with John at the end. He really was extremely kind to Sansa. And that's one of the few things that I really appreciated about him, because when you take a look at him and his entire family, they reject him because he's not like them. He
yeah,
may not be the cleanest of people, but he's got a good heart.
yeah.
And of course, he's got the gossip queen with him, Lord Varys, who is also one of the best parts of the whole show.
Man, when Varys went, I was so sad
I
because I
was
was like,
angry.
there he goes, he's right, and he's dying for nothing.
Yeah, and that's another thing. It's not just, I mean, like, it was really Arya, Sansa, their stories were very intriguing. Also, I was there for Theon's story because I felt horrible for him. I really couldn't believe what they did with his character, but that's going to be a part of the next question.
Yeah,
But again, another story that you wish didn't happen, and then he ends up redeeming himself, to a certain degree, which was very, very good. But there's also so many great supporting characters, and
oh yeah,
the funny thing is, like, I have a couple of Game of Thrones Funko Pops, but not all the main characters are in that collection. I have Lord Varys, I have Lady Mormont, I have Olenna Tyrell. Like, these are the characters that, even though they had next to no story, they just made their mark on the show. And I mean, that's one of the best things that makes an excellent character. If you're short lived on the show, either way, as long as you make your mark, that's just incredible.
oh yeah, for sure. And I mean, even the characters that you're not supposed to like, I think Game of Thrones has probably had some of the best written villains
Yes.
I have ever seen in my 26 years.
Because the thing about those villains is there's no true shades of gray. Like, the evil are evil and there's nothing getting around it. Cersei is evil. Walter Frey is evil. You know, like, all these people, like, there was, there were some people that wanted to see Cersei have a moment where she's like saying, what am I doing? But no, she never had it.
Well, I think a part of, and maybe this applies to Cersei, and maybe this is a matter of perspective, but even though I don't agree with how she handles things or how she does things, I think one of the things that not a lot of people take into account is how devastated Cersei was when she lost her mother. That was the beginning of the end for Cersei. And I mean, you shouldn't cope with the loss of your mother by banging your twin or rejecting the brother that killed her in childbirth. But I think one of the things that shaped Cersei to be as ruthless and terrible as she was her death, and also Tywin almost immediately after forcing her to marry Robert.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Because I don't know if the show really went into this a lot, but Cersei's whole dream was to marry Rhaegar Targaryen. That's who she was going to be betrothed to. And then Robert killed him.
Mm.
So not that excuses her behavior, but I'm a writer, guys. I get into the psychology of characters. I don't like making excuses for the characters, but I like making sure that I understand the behavior. And even with Ramsay Bolton, who is revolting and disgusting and a psychopath, a lot of what shaped who he was not all that different to Theon's story, really. They just kind of handled it a little bit differently. Was they wanted to please their fathers so badly that they did terrible things. And especially with House Bolton, Ramsay took things to the nth degree. Their sigil is a flayed man. House Bolton takes no shit. They torture their enemies. If you deny House Bolton, that's what you do. You get hurt. And I think Ramsay being Snow for most of his life really took that and lodged that in his brain. Kind of like how Jon says, my father was honorable. I want to do the right thing. Ramsay almost does the complete opposite of that because he just wants to please Ruse,
Mm-hmm. So then that goes into the fourth question. And the best part about the fourth question basically is, when someone who's never watched a Game of Thrones episode, how does someone describe the show to them? I always say the following: once upon a time, everybody died, the end. One of the few things that this show is undeniable for is how many things they did to shock the audience. Whether it was killing Ed Stark in the first season of the show, to what goes on with Theon when he's captured by the Boltons. So my big question to you is, what was the moment of the show that just totally shook you? Like, the thing, like, I cannot believe they did what they just did. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's the same thing for the two of us.
There was so many moments. I think the most shocking for me, though, honestly, was the Red Wedding.
Me too. The Red Wedding was an episode that when that episode's credits rolled, and I was with my wife, and the funny thing is my wife read the book.
Yeah.
And she looked at the description of the episode because she knew I didn't read the book. And she's like, uh-oh, I think I know what's happening today. So she knew because she read the books. But when that episode was finished, I didn't know what to say. I was speechless. I was like, oh my God, they're gone. Like, all these characters that I know are gone, and Mr. Filch killed them all.
Yep. That was my reaction basically as well. And the funny thing is, like, up until a few years ago, I didn't even like Catelyn or Rob that much. And even, obviously, that opinion has changed now that I've, grown up quite a bit and understand them quite a bit more. But like, me not even liking them that much at the time, and tears running down my face because this man just wanted to marry the girl that he got pregnant, and that was it. And then they murdered him for it.
You killed off half your cast.
Yeah.
Now what do you do? Like, what are you gonna do? I guess that's why the show was so popular. I think it's a major contributing factor because people are basically shook when major cast members are gone, and it's like, well, what are they gonna do now? Because this doesn't happen in typical sitcoms or dramas or anything.
Yeah, I mean, they certainly made something revolutionary and one of a kind. There's going to be copycats, but it's never going to be Thrones. Not even the prequels that they're creating are going to be Thrones.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say about the prequels, because when it comes to Game of Thrones stuff, it's like my wife will go into every conspiracy theory, every fan fiction. She loves the lore, but I wasn't really on board with all that. I just watched the show, Yeah, so that's the best part about this show. It just kept you guessing, and you didn't really know what was going to happen next, and that's just really crazy writing. We've hit the midpoint, and all of Britt's information will be down there if you want to follow her, whether it's Twitter or Instagram, on her YouTube channel. She's definitely got some awesome stuff to say, and we're going to get into the fifth question, and that's an interesting one. Did you feel at any point for yourself that the story or the show in general was lagging at all, and what was that point that you felt that it just wasn't as good as it was?
I think we said this in the beginning a little bit, but and it's not that it was boring or it wasn't full of action, but I could not wait for Arya to get off of Bravos and go home, because I find Jaqen H'ghar the most boring, unfulfilling character. Not in the whole series, maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration, but I was not about the faceless man plotline, not even in the books. I think it is so boring, and like, people cutting people's faces off to wear them should not be boring, but man, did they make it boring.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, that's also the same season with the Sparrows and the Harpies.
I think so. Yeah.
That's the exact same season that I'm absolutely there with you. I thought that season, and I believe that was either season 5 or 6, it was as if we had so much amazing build-up, and then we just flatlined.
Yeah. But I mean, overall, I still think they were pretty decent seasons. I just wasn't really invested in Arya's story at that point. which is weird because up until that point I had rooted for her, and I think it's around that time where I kind of fell off the Danny hype train.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, people can try to dismiss it as much as they want, but Danny going the way that she did was always going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Drogo says the exact thing that she did in season 1. She goes into season 2 and is like, if you're not gonna let me into your house, I'm gonna set you all on fire with my dragons. And it's always been there. So I don't know why people are so, like, Danny would never do that, because she would. She says it in season 2. Like, sure, they could have maybe alluded to it a little better or made it paced a little slower, but it was always there. It was always going to happen. It didn't just come out of nowhere. You know?
Yeah, yeah, I'm there with you right there because and it's really upsetting because the whole thing with the Sparrows. I mean, the lead Sparrow was played by the great Jonathan Pryce, and he's a fantastic actor. But I really just didn't. I mean, the only part about that season, especially with the Sparrows, that was ultimately satisfying to me was just the fact that Cersei finally got what she needed. And then what's even more and what made me even more angry was the fact that she literally was able to shake it off and still be the stern person. Like she learned nothing from
Yeah.
any of this. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, the whole thing with Jack and the Card, I was not on board with that. I was not on board with what was going on with Dany's story because Dany was just basically sitting in that. Well, I'm thinking she was still in Marine at that time.
Yeah.
And it was as if like she didn't even want to leave Marine. She was just like, I'm happy where I am right now. I don't need the throne anymore. Although to a certain degree, that would definitely throw the audience off again.
Yeah.
But I also consider that season to be somewhat forgettable because I also don't really remember much what happened to any of the other characters. I think that was also the same year that the Tyrells all got blown up. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, that was probably one of the only interesting parts, and then Tommen just threw himself out a window.
Yeah. Poor little baby Tommen.
Yeah.
But man, like, there's one thing you don't do, and that's kill Natalie Dormer off.
No, that's true. That's true.
Did the tutors teach you nothing, Game of Thrones?
Yeah, you don't kill off Natalie Dormer, and you don't kill off Diana Rigg either.
Yeah. She went out like a boss, though.
Oh, she was probably one of the best parts of that show, just because she knew how to get under everybody's skin. That was why she was just so entertaining. I loved her.
Oh, yeah, me too. I miss her. That whole, it was me, tell Cersei it was me. Oh, perfection.
Yeah, because that was also a part of the show that a lot of, you know what, this is not even a real question, part of it, but I just want to throw this out anyway. Were you satisfied with a lot of the villainous characters that got killed off? I mean, there are certain ones that I'm sure, but how did you feel when Joffrey died? And like, was that like one of the deaths you really wanted? Because it definitely was for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. At that point, I had been reading the books, so I knew it was going to happen, but I didn't know when. And when it happened, I was like, yes.
Yeah, and I'll tell you the truth. One of the characters that I actually liked at the beginning of the show, and my wife argues with me all the time, I actually had a soft spot for Baelish.
I can see that.
Maybe it was just because of the fact that I appreciated how crafty he was and how he manipulated people. But let me also just say that when he got his throat slashed, I was thrilled because like I was ready for him to die.
You know, I was low key team Littlefinger until he started, like, until I realized that he was like being a pedophile.
Exactly.
And then I wanted him gone.
And I think yeah, and I think everybody was absolutely thrilled when Ramsay was killed because everybody especially, you know what? I don't want to hurt your feelings because I know you're such a Theon fan, but I think that people kind of didn't care about Theon getting all this torture because of what he did in season 2. But after what he did to Sansa, that's when everybody wanted him dead.
Yeah. And that's another plot point that a lot of people took issue with, because that doesn't happen in the books. It's a completely different character that happens to in the books that isn't in the show. But, and I mean, not that I liked that it was Sansa over somebody else, but I'm glad that they gave that to Sansa, because if at that point they had brought in Jane, who we have never seen on the show, nobody would have cared. You know what I mean? So by giving it to Sansa, this girl who we have seen beaten and brutalized and abused all this time, finally she gets home. That's all she's wanted.
Yes.
And then Littlefinger goes, bringing you to the Boltons, and everybody's like, oh no.
Yeah.
And man, like, it's brutal to watch.
Yeah.
But Ewan, Rion, Alfie, and Sophie killed it.
They did. They really did.
They were, like, Ewan Rion should have won an Emmy for Ramsay.
But you know what? I don't mind that, especially because of the fact that when it comes to a show like Game of Thrones, where you have such an ensemble, you don't want one to get singled out. It's one of the main reasons why I was very happy that even though Ian McKellen was nominated for his performance in Fellowship of the Ring, no other cast member in the films until The Return of the King was done and it won Best Picture got individual awards. They shouldn't have. It's a team effort. When the show wins for best drama, or the show wins a massive award that basically gives the praise to everybody, that makes me feel like everybody got a trophy, you know, in the best way possible, not in the most demeaning way possible.
Yeah.
Because everybody is responsible for that one entity to receive an award. So if Game of Thrones wins best show, then that means everybody on that staff, actors and staff members included, they're all a part of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So going into the last season, what did you want to see happen? And did anything that you want to see actually did take place? And who did you think was going to die or live, regardless of love or hate for the characters?
Okay. So I knew that it wasn't very likely that Theon was going to survive. I went back and forth with him. I had an entire, you know what I spent those 2 years on? I spent 2 years formulating a theory on how Theon could live.
Well, the good thing is he's officially going to become a real Funko Pop, and you will have Theon forever.
He is.
It's about time.
Yeah, so it's been a long time coming. They could have given Alfie an Emmy, but, you know, playing 4 roles in one single character instead of just giving it to Peter Dinklage. But no shade to Peter Dinklage, by the way. He's phenomenal. But
Yeah.
Alfie Allen played 4 characters in one. So, but Varys was on my death list. I had a theory that didn't pan out, thankfully, that Tyrion was going to be executed by the dragons because he was going to betray Dany in some way, because with Daenerys, betrayal could be so much as talking to the wrong person. And our boy Tyrion had some very close run-ins with death. Like, in that one shot in season 8 where they're back at Dragonstone and
Yes.
Tyrion's walking into the mouth of the dragon, I was like, oh no, he's dead. He's gonna get barbecue Tyrion. And thankfully that did not pan out. I thought maybe there was a possibility that Bran would sacrifice himself for the greater good, but that did not pan out. I knew Jorah was going to go because he's been with Dany since season 1.
Yeah.
He's been her protector. He's been devoted to her for all this time. And I knew he was going to die in the Battle of Winterfell. Like, there were no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I knew that he was going to go out protecting the woman that he loved. And it was devastating. Was not expecting Lady Mormont to go, though.
And she went down with a fight.
She went out like a boss. She took down a giant, little tiny baby Lyanna Mormont with her last breaths, stabbed a giant in the eye with dragon glass.
It's crazy, but
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah.
Nah, I mean, I gotta tell you, there were a couple of characters that I really didn't think were going to survive, merely because of the fact that I didn't think that they were going to have the staying power. But one of the few things that I'll tell you, when Brienne, she lived, Sir Davos lived, Podrick lived, so
Yeah.
Ormond lived, Sam lived. You know, and like while you're watching that battle for Winterfell, like you really are like on the edge of your seat because you really think that they're all like all these characters are going to die. But when you see them all and like other characters like Gendry is still alive, and you see them all just like standing over mountains of dead bodies, to a certain degree at the beginning, I was like, really? You didn't kill any of these people? And like we really thought that you were going to kill everybody, but as the show progressed into the last season, I was kind of happy about the fact that these characters lived. And you want to know why? Because there were no reasons to sacrifice them. The fact that, to a certain degree, now that I backtrack, it's sort of a different kind of a twist. Rather than these characters dying because you really thought that they were just brush-offs, these characters have everything to live for.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew in my heart of hearts that Tyrion was not going to die. I knew it that he was never going to die. Part of me thought that Jon was going to die.
Yeah.
I really, really thought they were going to kill him. I had a feeling Dany was going to die. I knew she was. Just because of the fact they literally took her and even though there were some people that said that she never really was the Mad Queen, there are so many people that say that she had signs all the way since the very beginning. And even if you watch the first season when her brother gets the molten gold poured over his head and you see her showing no emotion at all for her brother dying, you're like almost that he's happy about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, he was an asshole, so like, but again, I don't necessarily agree that Dany, at least not until the last episode when she gave her speech, I don't think she necessarily went mad. I think she just lost everything.
Yeah.
And she was told her entire life, you know, when you get to Westeros, the people, they're waiting for you. They're going to love you. They're waiting for you. They're waiting for their savior, Daenerys Targaryen. And when she gets to Westeros, all she's met with is opposition. And, you know, she gets to Winterfell, doesn't receive a very warm welcome. And that's a thing that I might go back to this point, but the thing is that the people of Winterfell didn't want her in the first place.
Yeah.
They begged Jon, no, don't go. We do not want you to go.
We want you to be the king.
We want you to be the king in the north. And then, you know, like, and not even because I'm a fan of Sansa, but he didn't even deliberate with anybody before going. He just kind of said, I'm going. There's no arguing. Sansa, you rule in my place. I don't care if you want to or not. I'm going to see her. And whether you agree with whether Jon made the right call or the right decision, maybe he did, because I guess in some ways they needed the dragons, even though I think they could have held their own without the dragons.
Yeah.
There might have been more casualties, but I think they could have managed on their own without the dragons. But you know, like, there's a part of me that feels for Dany, because she's lost Jorah, she lost Missandei, she lost Jon.
She didn't lose Grey Worm, at least.
No, but Grey Worm's, like, at that point, Grey Worm isn't even human.
Yeah, that's
anymore. Because Missandei was the only thing that gave him
hope. Yeah.
Hope in humanity, and then, you know, it was over for Team Dany the moment she said Dracarys.
Yeah, that's true. That is very true. But I was, you know, very surprised by all the events that took place in the last season. I was also very surprised by the tone of everything, and we'll get into that in just a couple of minutes. But I think the one thing that I was very upset about was the anticlimactic ending in King's Landing, because first of all, one of the few things that really upset me was what happened with Jaime. Because you really thought that, I really was like saying to myself, really, why'd you do this? Like, Jaime really was on the path to redemption. He could have stayed in Winterfell. He could have stayed with Brienne, and he could have been on the side of Sansa if she was going to be the queen. But then he just goes right back, like, instantaneously, with not even a hesitation.
Yeah.
And I really thought that he was going to go into King's Landing. He was going to corner Cersei. She was going to actually get to him first and kill him. And in his dying breath, he was going to stab her and say, the things I do for love, and that is how they die. But, oh my God, I was thrilled that Cersei was killed off. But the way she was killed off with Jaime was just so anticlimactic, and it was such a disappointment. That whole episode was a disappointment to me, because you really expected so many other things. I mean, we learned that Arya apparently can't get killed by anything. And even the Battle of Winterfell was a little anticlimactic for me, because I thought the editing was absolutely horrendous.
Me too. Mostly because I couldn't see anything.
Yeah.
Even with my brightness turned up. Like, I get that it's called The Long Night, and I get that it's a night shoot, and I get that it has to be dark.
And atmospheric, yes.
But you can add a light or two more.
I agree.
So we can actually see the dragons, like, flying in the sky.
Yes.
Or Theon not getting speared to death by the Night King, which, not even because he was my favorite, I still think is bullshit, and his death was way more less of an impact because Arya came in 5 seconds later and destroyed the Night King.
Yep. Yeah.
Just literally came out of nowhere. Just like, where did she jump from? How did she climb the tree? Why did none of the whites come after her and stop her?
Exactly. And
did she just project off Theon's corpse and just, like, leap onto the Night King? I don't know.
Well, that leads into the last question. I'm actually changing it a little bit because of a couple of pieces of news that came out in the last week. Okay. So what was your overall feeling about how the show ended with the last episode? And do you feel that there is hope for this world to continue in the future projects that are happening. Because I'll let you take the closing sentence, but here's my attitude. Thank goodness the series finale of The Big Bang Theory was so wonderful. Because if I would have gotten two series finales that totally sucked balls, I would have been so upset. But I actually found out where you could actually spoil yourself for the last episode. And I basically said to myself, you know what? I'm not the biggest Game of Thrones fan. This entire season has been a disappointment. I'll watch the last episode, but let me just see what they're talking about. And when I saw what happened to Dany and who got the Iron Throne, even though there was no Iron Throne at the end, I was like, I'm afraid to leave my house on that Monday because the nerds are going to riot. I felt that way in my heart of hearts. And all that I realized at the end of this show was that at the end of the day, this story was just about a boy and his dog. That's what it was to me at the very end.
I mean, I don't think, and don't get me wrong, the finale had its issues.
Mm-hmm.
I have my issues with the finale. But, and maybe this had, I liked the finale a lot. It was probably one of my favorites episodes in the whole season.
It had good moments. I will not deny that it was not a horrible overall episode. It had a lot of things to enjoy, and it had some good closure.
Yeah.
It wasn't the closure that people necessarily wanted, but you got closure nonetheless.
Yeah. And maybe this had a lot to do with the fact that I was watching it physically with one of my best booktube friends, Shan, from Secondhand Shan, who is, no longer on booktube.
I know.
But she came to my house and we got to watch the finale together. And that was such a special moment for the both of us because, we live and breathe Game of Thrones. So the fact that we got to experience the finale together, I mean, we were screaming, we were crying, we were cheering, maybe this is personal bias coming in, but I was really glad that Bran ended up on the throne because
I liked what you said. I remember what you said, and you know something? I'm completely supportive of what you said. The fact that they gave it to a boy who was crippled and in a wheelchair. That was a very admirable thing. But of course, because of the fact that he is the three-eyed raven, now we actually have the king that watches all, that knows all, the wise one.
And he's again, it's a different situation from Grey Worm, but I think it's a side effect of just having the power of the three-eyed raven. But you don't have human emotions to impact your decisions. You can only make rational choices.
Exactly.
And what is good for maybe not everybody, but the majority. And I think it's fitting that we started this series with Bran, the first point of view chapter in a Game of Thrones is Bran.
Right.
And we begin this journey with Bran. We watch his literal fall from grace to becoming the most powerful man in Westerosi history. And I thought that was great. And Sansa got what Robb wanted all along, because Rob wanted Northern independence, and that's why he died. I don't know why people have this gross double standard when Rob wanted independence and all of a sudden Sansa wants to vote for Northern independence and everybody gets their panties in a bunch.
No, I thought that what she did was very bold, and like I said, she deserved a good ending for her story. And the fact
Yeah.
that now, and you know what? Because of what she became, she will be one of Winterfell's best royalty.
Yeah.
She will carry on the Stark name.
Yeah, and I mean, she's married to Theon's ghost, so it's fine.
There you go.
That was one of the things that I really wanted to happen, was Theon and Sansa getting married. And we almost got it. We were so close. Brian Cogman giveth, and then Brian Cogman taketh away with the Battle of Winterfell, because I don't care what anybody said. They were making the ooh faces at each other while they were eating soup.
Yeah, I think
They could not take their eyes off of each other when they were reunited.
Yeah.
They were a couple. That was a couple's montage. They were a couple.
And I wasn't really upset with what happened with Arya because she said she's no lady. I mean, do we want to see her end up getting married to Gendry? Yes, because truthfully, I think that Gendry would have treated her more than just as another woman. I think he would have really treated her like his equal. But you know what? I'm not surprised what happened with her. I'm not surprised in the slightest.
Oh, no, me either.
And quite frankly, if there was any character that I would have loved to see the continuation of the story, it would have totally been Arya, because I still felt that even though Arya had come such a long way, there was, especially after the Battle of King's Landing, you could totally see there was so much more for her to journey on. Her journey was far from over.
Oh, yeah, I think definitely, maybe not somewhere in the near future, but somewhere down the line, there's going to be an Arya spinoff.
She really is the Hound now. She's the Hound.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I'm not really interested in any of the future projects that Game of Thrones is going to give us. I'm really not. I mean, I love the fact that everybody joked that now that Game of Thrones is over, you can now officially cut your HBO. That's it. But HBO still has so much to offer. The third season of Westworld is coming. I have such high hopes for the His Dark Materials series. It looks great. I mean, when Lin-Manuel Miranda talks, everybody listens. So I'm excited to see what that show's going to turn into. I really think that Watchmen is going to be successful. There's also big rumors that they're still trying to make a series out of Isaac Asimov's Foundation. So HBO is far from dead now that Game of Thrones is gone. And now everybody's watching that show, Gentleman Jack. It's getting a buzz. I'm not watching it, but it's getting a buzz. But that's the point.
I am so excited about Gentleman Jack. Maybe it's because I'm a lesbian and the Victorian era is like my thing, but like Victorian lesbians and Gemma Whelan, please sign me up.
The point that I'm making here is that Game of Thrones, even though it's over, you know, it's sad to say goodbye to characters that you loved. I mean, I made a big deal even though I didn't have to, but I over-exaggerated. When I had to cancel the recording of The Big Bang Theory, like, it's a sad thing because you're no longer going to be getting any new episodes. But there's so many other things that we're going to be able to see. Things will live on. I mean, look. We dealt with having no more Lord of the Rings movies for a while, no more Star Wars movies, because at this point in time, I don't think anybody wants more Star Wars movies at this point, but that's a whole other story. Either way, you know what? I would have liked to have gotten a much more epic ending, but the last episode, I think, made it all satisfactory.
Yeah.
Not like, oh my God, and I think that this petition that's going around to reshoot season 8, I think that that's really stupid. It's just, there's no point in this. Move on with your life.
Yeah. It's, for one, it's insulting to the people, like everybody who has busted their ass for the past 2 years to make this show.
Yes.
And 2, a petition isn't going to do jack shit.
Yeah, I mean, like, do you think that maybe the show would have done a little bit better if J.R.R. Martin had actually finished the series.
Yes.
Do you think that this will actually give him the incentive to finish the series? Because honestly, a lot of people are thinking no.
I had my doubts. I think he will finish it.
Mm-hmm.
He had like the I don't want to say this is confirmed or denied, but I believe he came out on his blog and said the next 2 installments for the books will be over 3,000 pages.
Frick.
So,
wow.
I don't know what that means completion wise, but I do think maybe there is a possibility that he might get his ass in gear and finish the series. I mean, he wrote Fire and Blood just fine.
Well, you know what? That's going to be discovered as the days move on, I guess. And that, ladies and gentlemen, officially wraps up our Sunday sit down. Britt, I really hope that this is going to be recorded because I really had a good time talking to you about this. Thank you so much for joining me. And don't forget, everybody, you'll be able to see all of Britt's contact information. Once again, I'm sorry that this wasn't live. I'm still trying to get this all worked out and fixed. I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't know if it will happen, but I'm going to do everything that I can to keep giving Sunday sit downs to you. So in the meantime, everybody, remember that I am Steve, your friendly neighborhood lawn gnome, and I'm hoping that you'll all have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. So in the meantime, I will see you all in the next one with another great topic, but more importantly, more great YouTubers to discuss them with. Take care, everybody. Hey, thank you so much for stopping by my channel today. If you're new here and want to see more of what my channel has to offer, please click on the link to my last video or hit that subscribe button to be kept up to date with all of my uploads. Content of all sorts is posted here quite often, so trust me, you do not want to fall behind. I will see you in the comments, and actions speak louder than words.